3.2. What is a manager? Activity 3.2. Start by writing down a few sentences in answer to the question, what is manager? We established one definition in Chapter 1 which defined a manager as a person who is responsible for coordinating resources and the action of others for the achievement of goals. According to our definition, managers are involved with leading people to achieve goals, need to coordinate the action of people together with other resources such as money, materials, and technology. Therefore, managers are more than leaders. They are a group of people who had in common the responsibility of achieving goals through the coordination of all resources. Activity 3.3. Next, think what factors make for differences between manager. Some are suggested by definition. Spend a few minutes thinking about this. In general, differences that occur can be attributed to the type of organization and its size and structure, the level, junior, middle, senior of management. What is that is being managed, products, services, finance, each. The company and personal goals, the style of management, where the manager is working and where he or she comes from, who the manager is working with. We explore some of these differences below. If you look at these factors, again you will see that they fall into two categories. Those that relate to the business structure and its objectives, and those that relate to the individual managers and his/her objectives. Now, look at the Mullins 2010, page 437, figure 11.5. Notice that, as already noted above, there are several environment factors that will have an effect on the nature of managers' job. Differences between managers. Number 1. Level and function of management. In Chapter 6 of this guide, we look at different organizational structures and you will see how this affect management structure. Figure 3.1 show how management hierarchies are commonly described. Modern thinking has reduced the layer of management, especially stripping out middle managers and empowering junior managers. We will come back to this when we look at business process reengineering (BPR) later in the guide. Figure 3.1 common terms used to describe managers in an original hierarchy. Note that in hierarchy such as illustrated above, many managers are in the middle of chain of communication and command. Order and manage messages go up and down the organization and from side to side. The first line managers are those who are directly responsible for and oversee the production of goods and services. Above this level are the middle managers who are not so directly involved in production but are more responsible for directing the frontline managers and the communicating between them and senior managers. This last type of manager is responsible for the achievement of goals at a more strategic level and would include the Chief Executive Officer (CEO). Differences in the type of goals to be achieved are also determined by the scope of a manager's responsibility. Functional managers are responsible for managing a particular sections of operations such as marketing, finance, or communications. In contrast to this, general managers are responsible for the achievement of broader goals or can be responsible across different functions. 4. Reading, we explore functional areas of a business in detail in chapter. Number 5. Look at Mullins 2010, page 500, figure 13.1 to see how different types of manager share the responsibility for one functional area, that of HR in organization. In this section, we have examined how different goals that managers are trying to achieve or directly relate to issues such as the type of organization and the level at which they manage. However, there is another significant variable, a manager's individual style, and how factors such as attitude, culture, and the individual qualities that make a good manager influence this style. Number 2. Qualities of the individual manager. This issue has been the subject of a great deal of research to discover what qualities are needed to be a successful manager. If it is possible to identify the necessary qualities that make a good manager, then managers can be trained to develop these qualities. Also, new recruits can be tested to see if they have potential. Activity 3.5. Think about all the different types of manager that exist. For instance, are you managed by anyone? Do you turn manage anyone else? Think of managers that you come across in your everyday life and what activities they are involved in. Number 1. Now, write down 3 examples of a manager, specifying the scope or level of their jobs and the type of organization. In your opinion, what attributes or qualities would each sort of manager need in order to be successful? Make a list of these next to each. Reading. Number 2. Read the following section of your main K text, Mullins 2010, Chapter 11, The Rule of the Managers, page 442 to 48. Chapter 17, Delegation and Empowerment, up to including the concept of empowerment, page 683 to 693. A supplementary reading is Body, 2008, Chapter 1. This looks more generally at the management job. As you read these pages, compare to the qualities mentioned in the text with the list of attributes that you develop for each of your 3 example managers above. Are there any similarities? Which of these qualities are managers born with, which can be learned? What is your opinion of the different research findings presented here? In the examples below, 2 factors affecting the manager's job and management style are considered. Example, gender differences. Historically, business management has been predominantly a male profession, not so household management. The influence of wider societal attitude cannot be ignored, such a woman traditional being seen as the homemakers. However, a particular relevant issue with regard to management has been different attributes and also values assigned to the sexes. If it's thought the successful managers need to have certain attributes but these are only associated with males, then this can be used to justify male dominance in the field. Example of this include rationality, competition, control, and self-assertion. Being seen as a male and positive for management potential. So-called female values include institution caring, emotion, acceptance, and cooperation, which some would not consider suitable for the task of management. However, much has been done to counter this view and to prevent discrimination against women. The arguments put forward are that women can also have the same attributes as men. Furthermore, those traits believed to be common in women can be seen as an aid rather than a hindrance to successful management. An example of this would be cooperation for good team working. Despite changes in attitude and the law regarding women and work generally when it comes to management, the concept of a glass ceiling is used. Have you heard this term before? Can you think what it could be in the context of women and management? The idea here is that changes has resulted in women being able to enter organization and climb the hierarchy to a certain level. However, at a certain point or the hierarchy, especially before the higher level of management, they hit a glass above them, they are not able to progress further. Although the progression of for women to top management is easier in the 21st century, it seems that there is still some way to go, and the situation is similar for other groups that have been underrepresented in a management, such as those from ethnic minorities. However, it also important to recognize the issues of this kind also vary in different parts of the world. Example, cultural influence. Cultural influences are important for understanding types of management. We need to recognize that this exists so that we avoid making inappropriate generalization, and also avoid creating unhelpful stereotypes. Managers exist the world over, but in chapter 1 of this guide we saw the importance of the historical context. It was mentioned that business and management as a field of study have developed at varying rates and under different influence in different areas of the world. We have looked at cultural factor in chapter 2, and in chapter 7 and 8 we consider that international context of business. Here it is appropriate to introduce the importance of culture, especially in relation to management. Culture influences the type of people that are described as manager, the qualities, and in managers, the level and scope of managerial work, style of management. For instance, in Malaysia, all administrative and managerial personnel are described as managers. In France, executives and professional employees are not included as managers. In South Korea, graduates recruited to white-collar jobs would be defined as managers even though they would not be promoted to managerial work until later in their career. Patterson, 1993. How about in your country? Activity 3.6. Think for a moment about management in your own country. Are there any cultural influence on how management is defined or the type of people who are managers? What about the historical context? How has this changed over time? Ask yourself whether the ideas you have read about are relevant to your own culture or whether any of the theories would be inappropriate because they have been developed or based on research done elsewhere in the world. Having read this section, ask yourself if there is a simple answer to the question, what is manager? What makes a good manager? Feed. The answer seems to be a complex and ambiguous. Even the definition of a manager is partly determined by wider issues such as the cultural context. Therefore, it can be seen that the definition we began with is purposely broad so it can account for this variation. Appreciating this complexity is an important step in your understanding of business management.